I forgot to get water. Where's my water? I need some liquid refreshment. There we go. We are back. Pause that. We will let folks in the world know what we're doing. And we'll do that. Put that there. Yep. Cool. All right. We are live and I'm talking. I'm actually looking over to here at a VCR of all things that is recording to digital file an anime series called My Dear Marie, an OVA from the 90s, very obscure these days, about a nerdy guy who invents he falls in love with a woman, but being so nerdy he can't bring up the courage to ask her out or anything, so he does what one would normally do in that situation and invents an android duplicate of her, whereupon wackiness ensues. And what I like is that it's somewhat ecchi, but the boy is nice enough, and the other characters are all frankly nice enough that it doesn't devolve into a lot of the standard sort of ecchi plot devices where characters are constantly angry at each other, right? Or constantly seducing each other. It's just about all these, the wacky situations they get into, basically. So it's a lot more, I guess, I'm gonna say situational humor, in the sense that there's a thing happening the characters are reacting to, and that's kind of more character humor. Hey Jay, good to see you. And just a really lovely little OVA, you know, cute but also well edited, well structured. So that is a good thing, and looking forward to having a copy of that. One of those things that I've been trying to find a copy of, but just could not find, torrent or anything like that. And it'd be nice to actually have a copy. So I'm going through all my VHS tapes and digitizing them finally. Most of which I have duplicates of, but I do also have all of the AMVs submitted to Otakon 2001, which is an odd thing to have, but I do have that. So I've been transferring all of those to files. I'm looking forward to uploading those, partly because, just to create the longest sentence in the world, I actually submitted an AMV to Otakon 2001. It did not make it into the competition, but it did make it into the overflow. And I've since lost the actual files for that. Or more accurately, I have the files somewhere, but they're for an old piece of software on an old operating system that I cannot get running again. So I am having to pull it off there, so I actually have a copy. And then, of course, it's on VHS, so it's quite low quality. But at least I'll have a copy, and maybe at some point I'll regenerate it. It's only like 60 seconds long. It'll be kind of fun to have that AMV back. I'm playing Song of Memories. Is that a visual novel? Song of Memories. Looks like. Cool. How is it? Looks nice. Let's go to the news for February. English subbing Kickstarter. That's interesting. Interesting. various anime teasers. We're actually coming up on the spring season, aren't we? Like, not immediately, but it's not that far away. So folks are starting to chug along with announcements and such, which is always good to see. Hey Fisher, good to see you. Hey Game Escape. I'm just skimming through the news here real quick. Top selling, let's just for fun, let's pull up the top selling light novels and comics in Japan for January. That'll be kind of fun. Japanese comic ranking, and animation TV ranking. Just see what's going on there. Looking for various things. Got all the new Nintendo Switch announcements, which I've downloaded all of the free content for that. Looking forward to playing around with that. That's kind of interesting. Tale of Genji thing. MVM does feel kind of like Japan's animation DVD and Blu-ray ranking. Yeah, let's do all the rankings here. Why not? Naruto indoor theme park to open in Shanghai. That's awesome. Gundam NT's first 23 minutes of episode 1 shoot with English dub. I will check that out. Funimation will not engage Vic Mignon on future productions. Wow. That's pretty bad. Alita makes some money internationally, not too surprisingly. $32 million in Asia and the UK. Interesting. I didn't know it was a simultaneous global release. Mamoru Oshii has a new film coming up. Okay, that's definitely interesting. Okay, that's enough. Okay, so what do we got? So there's an anime film called Twilight, original anime project called Twilight, opened a Kickstarter to raise about $45,000 for English subtitles and to expand the anime's theatrical premiere. They want to give away tickets to students and hold screenings in public facilities in areas that are not near theaters. Interesting. So far, it's only raised $2,000 out of the, again, $45,000 it needs. That's problematic. Originally crowdfunded on the Japanese site Campfire, which met its goal of about $137,000 in April of 2017. Yamakan, the original work, script, direction, and sound direction. This is Yutaka Yamamoto, who is well known for what? Sounds familiar. He's the Kanagi guy, and the Haruhi Suzumiya guy, and the guy who got kicked off of Lucky Star, apparently. Interesting. We'll see where that goes. Also to Wake Up Girls. Pokemon Go proposed settlement filed in a California court in a class action lawsuit against Pokemon Go. May affect Pokestops, gyms, and raid battles in the augmented reality game. Let's see here. So if you're within 100 meters of a Pokestop or gym, then there needs to be, well, let's say, so basically they're looking for removing Pokestops or gyms within 40 meters of single-family residential property after receiving a complaint from the owner. With a database of complaints. Okay, so basically, folks are making nuisances of themselves by congregating and shouting and screaming near commercial and residential properties. So basically, there's going to be a system whereby folks can complain, and then if there are a significant number of complaints, then they'll remove that Pokestop or gym. That seems pretty reasonable. Because right now it's just, oh yeah, no, they just placed it there. You gotta live with it. So Anime Limited, which is a UK company, announced they're going to release the Castlevania animated series as a collector's Blu-ray in Q2 2019. Interesting. That's the Netflix series. So I wonder how they're doing that. Remarkable. All right, let's look at the top-selling light novels in Japan of January 2019. It actually covers January 14th to February 11th. Top is Classroom of the Elite. Then, Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon on the Side Sword Oratorio, whatever that is. Yeah, I'm sure there's a live-action Ghost in the Shell in the works somewhere, if not at Netflix, somewhere else. Then Promised Neverland. Mamatachi no Tsutsukyoku, which looks like a spin-off. Eramaga Sensei, number 4. Sword Art Online, 21. Tondemo Skilled Iskai Horo Meshi, volume 6. ReZero, and number 7. Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, Main, volume 14. Number 9 is Spice and Wolf. Then Akashic Records. Kyute Shinkan Monogatari V. 12 is Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. Wow, that's going well. More Promised Neverland. Aria the Scarlet Ammo. Then top selling comics in Japan for the same period. Kingdom, volume 53. Not sure what Kingdom is. Let me look that up. Two boys dream of becoming generals. Opportunity arises when taking the capital. Other boy, yeah, okay, yeah. So a fighting battle thing, okay. Then The Promised Neverland, Volume 2. Seven Deadly Sins, Black Clover, Ace of Diamond, Act 2, Skip Beat, Gintama, Kaguya-sama Love is War, cool. Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, Snow White with the Red Hair, number 10. Looks like a shoujo-y thing? Yeah. Definitely. Interesting. So it looks also kind of like a girl power kind of a thing. Hey, Spin. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. What else have we got? Japanese comic ranking for last week. My Hero Academia, Haikyuu, Rurouni Kenshin Hokkaido Arc 2. That is why they are still letting Watsuki draw manga, because it is that popular. D. Gray Man, Food Wars, Boruto, We Never Learn, Library Wars, Yuna and the Haunted Hot Springs, and then Dr. Stone. We Never Learn is a romantic comedy. So basically, not unlike the quintuplets anime. Poor boy has to tutor, in this case, 2 students. But it looks like in this case they are excellent at one field, but they want to get into another field, and they're clueless in it. So, interesting. Sounds cute. What's Dr. Stone? Oh, very shonen. Taiju is about to confess to the girl he loves when a mysterious force hits the earth and turns every human into stone. Hate when that happens. Taiju and his friend wake up thousands of years later and begin to rebuild society. Wow, okay. Weekly Shonen Jump. So look for that anime coming soon. Japanese animation TV ranking February 4th to 10th. Sazai-san, Detective Conan, Chibi Muroko-chan, and Crayon Shin-chan, and Doraemon, as always. Then Ace Attorney Season 2, One Piece, Precure, Kitaro, good for you, Kitaro, and then Ushiri Tante, which looks like a show for little kids. Animation DVD ranking, Mirai, big shock there. Sing, which looks like it's a foreign thing. Tsurune Kazamai Koko Kyudobu. The Archery anime. Number 5 is One Piece, 19th season, Whole Cake Island Arc Piece 8. Then Bunny Girl Senpai. My Neighbor Totoro re-release, followed by, oh, I'm sorry, I missed, number 4 is Despicable Me 3, number 8 is Despicable Me, and number 9 is Despicable Me 2. Then Minions at number 10. So, yeah. Sigh. Blu-ray disc ranking, Bunny Girl Senpai at number 1, then Dog Days, Tsurune, Mirai, Sword Art Online, Coco Movie Next. I'm sorry, Coco, Incredibles 2, Uma Musume Pretty Derby at 8, 9, and 10. Wow. For the first, third, and fourth box set, apparently. And then Reincarnated as a Slime at number 11. Cool. What else we got here? Let's see here. The Shanghai New World Shopping Mall announced on Tuesday it'll open a new indoor theme park named Naruto World. Produced by Nelke Planning, a Japanese stage production company. 7,000 square meters, so about 1 3/4 acres, on the 11th floor of the mall. So no other news about that or than that, but that's cool. Again, Gundam NT first 23 minutes available on Gundam.info. That's nice. So yeah, Funimation has announced they investigated Vic Mignogna and decided not to engage Mignogna in future productions. Wow. Interesting. Sad. So Deadline reported that Alita earned $32 million in Asia and the UK when it opened last week. Opened in 11 markets by last weekend. Opened number 2 in South Korea, earning $5 million in Taiwan, $10 million in Korea, $4 million in the US, and $2.9 in Malaysia. I'm sorry, $4.2 million in the UK. It opens in the United States on Thursday, tracking to earn only $25 million. So that is a film. Alita might do okay internationally. Here's hoping. So it looks like a really interesting film. Let's see here. So Sanuki Film Festival in Takamatsu, Kagawa Prefecture screened Mamoru Oshii's new film on Sunday. Bit of a mistake in doing so. Called a dark fantasy film. Took 4 months. But they haven't said whether it's live action or animation. We do know that he was working on a school fantasy live action film. We also know he's supposed to direct an animation film adaptation of the Chimera novel series. Interesting. So there's something out there he's working on. Who knows? GK announced on Friday to bring back screenings of Mirai in select North American theaters beginning February 18th. So that's cool. Let me just pull that up, see if we get any more information. Yeah. Theaters. Okay. Yeah, there's a fair number of places it's going to be screening on February 18th. So if you're in the U.S., check that out. You might be able to catch a showing. 18th. That's Monday, basically. Yeah, cool. There's something else in here I wanted to check because I was in the middle of stuff and was just sort of scrolling by. There will be a Tale of Genji. I'm sorry, a Genji fantasy from the Tale of Genji Museum. A modern high school girl named Hana is transformed into a cat, transported back in time into the events portrayed in the Tale of Genji, which is one of the most famous Japanese novels. Arguably the first novel ever written It is a 20-minute original anime that it will screen in the museum starting April 2nd. There's a trailer out there. Looks kind of cute. Cool. That's a neat idea. You know, how do you get people to care about your classic novel? One of the ways is to make an anime out of it. Or about it, if you will, not out of it. Glad you're feeling better, Jay. Sickness sucks. I was actually sick 2 weeks ago. Well, like last week, technically. Blah, always sucks. Missed some work. Hate when that happens. Yeah, good to know about that, Fisher. The Kudo is more about the bromance, which I mean is, you know, how much of free is really about swimming, right? Focus. Focus, focus, focus. Focus. Hello, focus. Focus. There. I've not seen Genkutsuo. I want to at some point. I've heard very good things. Yeah, French novel, exactly. The Count of Monte Cristo. Look at Romeo x Juliet. Or Romeo cross Juliet, I suppose. That is a lovely, lovely anime series. Has its issues, but it definitely, if you want to get excited about Shakespeare, that's a great way to do it. Because there's lots of fun stuff in that. Lots of fun stuff in the dub. They actually went back and in the dub found a bunch of lines that the translator didn't realize necessarily were references to Shakespeare. So the dub is in some ways more accurate to Shakespeare than the sub is, because they were like, oh, this is clearly a reference to Othello, and like dubbed it with the exact line from Shakespeare instead of the subtitles, which were just, you know, a line of text. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm trying to think of other examples where folks have used that. Do you think that visual novels will get a bigger foothold in North America? Good question. It's hard. I mean, certainly visual novels are getting bigger and bigger in the video game world. Folks are noticing them more on places like Steam. Even just regular, video game players are aware of visual novels and what they are, even if they're not playing them. The problem is, visual novels are a big barrier for a lot of people. Just the basic form factor, the basic gameplay, such as it is. I think it's hard for that to win over a lot of fans. So that's gonna be the hard thing. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, it's hard to predict the future, right? What will or won't happen. But I think there's a lot of there's a potential. I think. Excuse me. I think the main problem is that most visual novels have stories. No, let me go back. I think the perception of the stereotypical visual novel is that it's about a Japanese high school boy who is, beset by cute Japanese schoolgirls. And so I think that's a big barrier for the average video game player. They're just like, I don't care about that particular plot. So if they can break out of that mold and do more stories that are not high school romance, and clearly not high school romance, or high school romance with a fantasy sheen on it, so to speak, that's going to be interesting. I think that'll be a really fun thing to do. I'm sorry, I'm looking over because this cute romantic comedy now has a bunch of explosions and a science fiction plot, which is really cute. It's a dream sequence, basically. Just kind of making fun of stuff. Yeah, that's the other problem too. Is I think visual novels will probably always have that shadow hanging over them, where it's like, well, okay, but is this, are there sex scenes in this, right? Because folks, when they recommend visual novels, if they want to get somebody into that medium, are going to say basically, so be aware there are some visual novels that are just porn, and that's going to be hard to get people past, if you will. So that's a tough one. I think certainly things like Steins Gate helps a lot. where folks are like, oh, okay, that's, it's a story, you know. Right, that's the thing, Fisher, is I think, High School Romance sells for the Japanese audience and for the limited, American audience, North American audience, and international audience that kind of gets that. But I think for that genre, or for that medium rather, to expand, people are going to have to, it's going to have stories that aren't just that. You can't just tell stories with the same concept and also broaden the audience in general. You gotta do something else. And part of the other reason is that High School Romance is very easy to portray in a visual novel. The medium is ideal for that kind of a story. It's harder to tell a high action story with a visual novel where there's really no animation, or no animation in the way we think of it. So, but when it's just basically all dialogue of characters, saying things and confessing their feelings and so forth, that really works in the visual novel context. And it's all about emotion, which you can portray in imagery and text and voice acting. So yeah, finding the alternative is tough, and I think you can totally do it. I think you could do a lot of interesting detective stories in a visual novel. You can do. I think you could do like what's the big epic sci-fi thing? Like the OVA with 100 episodes. I'm forgetting it. Legend of Galactic Heroes. I think you could do something like that. A very, very political, very talky science fiction story. I think you could do really well in a visual novel. Lovecraft style? Yeah, totally. Horror would work very well. And I think you're absolutely right, Game Escape. I think there is a relaxing element to visual novels because they are so simple, and I don't mean that in a bad sense, but in the sense that the gameplay is so consistent that you just kind of lulled into this pattern, which the game can then play with a little bit, where something leaps out at you, or some a plot twist happens. It does feel surprising. Yeah, totally. I think it's one of the appeals. You just kind of play this thing for a while, and it appeals. I think it's also one of the reasons why. That's actually a really interesting point. That the whole oh, jeez, whoa. It's one of the reasons why the modern moe trope of modern high school boys surrounded by half a dozen cute girls. I think it's one of the reasons why it coalesced around visual novels, because the medium is very relaxing and just feels good, feels easy. Yeah, horror has, in fairness, horror has never been massively popular, but you're absolutely right. There's less of it now, I would argue, than there was. There's probably more horror anime in the 90s, I'd say. Some more in the 80s as well. Because I think it's one of those things that, for some reason, has never sold very well. I do get the feeling that there's a lot of horror. There's certainly a lot of live action horror in Japan, and I'm sure plenty of of novels, horror novels and things. There's plenty of horror manga as well. Now that I think about it, and yeah, I think it's an untapped potential. But again, I don't know if it just doesn't sell. If the average otaku just doesn't want horror, could be. There's a really interesting manga that I was kind of surprised hasn't gotten adapted. Or wasn't adapted at some point. Maybe it just was, wrong time. The Drifting Classroom. So if you want a really dark, what is it? Promised Neverland kind of a manga. That's it. Basically, this elementary school is transported into this desolate wasteland. Just suddenly disappears, and it shows up there. And like literally, it is transported there. So like, the power is cut off. The water lines are cut off. It is just in the middle of this like hellscape, and so they have to ration out the food and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very realistic portrayal of that in that sense, and the adults immediately freak out. My one complaint about it, actually, my one major complaint, besides the fact that I'm not a big fan of the art, is that all the adults immediately just go nuts and start like killing each other and like killing students and such, and it's like what? Yeah, this is definitely a really dark thing. I've only read the first volume because I was like, I don't know where this is going. I probably need to check out the plot of the other volumes to see where it goes, because I'm like, this really feels like the kind of story where the author has a concept and then just starts running with it, and every chapter he's kind of figuring out the next thing that's going to happen. Like, there doesn't seem like there's a lot of depth in the plot, so I just want to make sure it isn't all shock value for like 12 volumes, and so they're just kind of trying to throw throw bad stuff at you just to shock you. I've never been a big fan of that, but yeah, totally good enough story, I think, for visual novels will bring in the money. I think there's potential. I think Steins Gate is a great example, and a lot of the other stuff by that studio has certainly been successful. Robotics Notes and such, where I think they have the appeal and their head screwed on straight in terms of telling those kinds of stories. As they put it, they want to make visual novels that deserve the title of novel, which I think is a fair point and a fair question. Boy, that's weird. There's a video now of a young woman walking around Japan with a plushie, and that's all I'm seeing. There's probably some music playing. No credits. It's just woman in a plushie. Maybe it's a music video or something. Yeah, When They Cry, certainly that. Talking about the manga is the Drifting Classroom. Oh, the art is very classic. I mean, it came out. When did it come out? They don't say, which is probably a hint. 1974, and it's very much, 70s style art. So just be ready for that. Somewhat, I don't want to say crude, but somewhat stiff, if you will. So we're certainly seeing more visual novels over the past, I don't know, decade or so, 5-10 years, that are starting to break the mold. When They Cry, such and such, but it's kind of slow going. I think it's like also like anything, Hollywood is slow to adapt to trends. The formula that makes money dominates. And it's hard for new things to come in, even when that formula isn't working as well anymore. So we'll see. But I think it's one of those things where, it can go lots of different ways. But I certainly like to see more interesting stories out of visual novels. And they also need advocates. There needs to be people out there talking about and writing about the visual novels that aren't, having sex with all your female classmates. So to speak, which is kind of one of those things. It's like, yeah, that feels like what so many visual novels end up being, even though so many are not. Mystery anime, yeah. Unfortunately, most of the mystery anime I've come across have tended to be how to put this. I'll just say it. Not very good mysteries. I like the characters, I like the setup, but the actual plot of the mystery, you can kind of figure out what it's going to be within like 2 minutes. It just, they're just not very well written as mysteries. It's one of the reasons I liked Homes of Kyoto, although I never finished it. But the cases were actually interestingly structured, interestingly written, and conceived and so forth. And yeah, certainly plenty of mystery in manga. That's the other thing too, is that if you are willing to go into the manga, then there's going to be tons of whatever genre you want in the manga. 1 second. There we go. Sorry, the tape just ended, and I wanted to stop the recording before it recorded like 30 minutes of black screen. Yeah, that's another thing that would be cool to kind of dig into. I mean, there's so much scanlated manga out there that's worth digging into. They touch on all of these genres that I think folks just aren't aware of. Partly because it does kind of suck to read manga on a screen on a desktop. It's much better in other formats. Although I suppose you could get on a tablet or whatever and read it that way, but it's just not not really what's fun. And then if you want to read like a scanlated manga, you got to actually like download the torrent or go to a website that might have it, or they might have taken it down or what have you. Manga browser, yeah. I need to take more advantage of that. Of course, I have such a huge backlog of manga. I actually picked up some manga last weekend, some random stuff. Other than just filling out some various things, I found a couple of just random volumes of manga. It's like, oh, that's a couple of bucks. I'll pick that up. One is Harukaze Butter Bop. I'm sorry, Harukaze Bitter Bop. No idea what this is, but I saw the artwork and was like, yeah, I'll give that a try. A delinquent high school student, a creature of the wind, and a detective take on the world. Chiyoharu used to be the leader of the troublemakers until one day an innocent prank results in a major fire at the school. When his 3 cohorts take the blame and are expelled, Chiyoharu tries to go on with his mundane life, beating himself up with guilt. Then he meets a mysterious muscle man, Soza of the North Wind, and a ditzy self-proclaimed detective who's trying to solve the mystery behind Soza's amnesia. Non-stop comedy and action from there. So, hey, I'll give that a try. Give you an idea of the art style. Want something a little more clear. So, pretty typical kind of shonen style, shonen comedy style. And yeah, I'll give it a try. And then Kurogane Communication. I actually have some history with this. There was an anime adaptation of this some years ago, which I picked up, and which was pretty dull, frankly, except for one amazing episode. Basic premise is that it's the end of the world as we know it. All humanity are dead. The only people left are various robots and androids that were built and survived this apocalypse, this complete nuclear holocaust. And then they find in a capsule the preserved body, the preserved like an alive body of a young girl, and they manage to defrost her and bring her out and wake her back up, and that's this girl here, and it's about her living in the end of the world where there's nothing, there are no other humans left, and these other androids taking care of her. So curious to see how that goes. The anime was a little more serious. It's a little bit more slice of lifey. I don't know. So there's some action in there. Let's see if I can get a good idea. The girl has Asuka hair, by the way, which also helps. So let's just get some. So yeah, fairly shoujo, fairly fun. But it's like, yeah, this will be fun to read and get a sense of. In the anime, it was, like I said, it could be serious, it could be funny, it could be there's no real romance, obviously. Oh yeah, here's the backstory of her getting locked up. Oh, that's more serious than I remembered. Holy smokes. But yeah, so I'll give it a try. Again, looks cute, looks fun. That's weird. Why are there people? Anyway, but yeah, so Kurogane Communication. Cute girl. And as you can see, $3. I mean, why not? So there's a little recommendation for the evening. Yeah, tablets have gotten so inexpensive these days. Obviously not an impulse purchase, but something where one can reasonably, if you can afford a phone, you can afford a tablet. And it's just definitely they have their pluses, especially for, like, again, reading manga and such, where you actually want to get a good idea of that. One of the things I've been trying to do is do more digital manga, partly because there's some manga that's only available digitally, even officially. So it's like, I kind of need that for that. And also just having less, fewer of these books around to have to clean and maintain. And, I had a shelf break the other day because of all the heavy books on it, so that's a problem. And I've got some pretty bowed shelves now already on my manga collections, which, this black bookcase I've only had for a year and a half, and some of those things are pretty badly bowed. So not looking forward to that, having to deal with that. The stresses we have as fans of all this stuff. I wonder what would happen if I tried to track down copies of all this stuff and get, like, scanlations of all this manga. That'd be quite a challenge. I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but it'd be interesting. Looking for anime like Kaleido Star. So something a little more shoujo, some action. I'd recommend. One second. Accessing. Thinking. This is Angelic Layer. If you haven't already seen it, which is an anime series or originally a manga by Clamp, creators of Cardcaptor Sakura and such, and it is their shonen series. Okay, seen it. Let's see here. Again, cute girls. There's, Chobits. I'd almost recommend Utena. Although, not really similar. Something's sticking at my brain for Kaleido Star recommendations. So for those who aren't familiar, Kaleido Star is about a teenage girl who decides to join a circus, sort of a Cirque du Soleil style circus, and the various trials and tribulations she goes into there as she's pursuing her dream. So I do feel like there's a fair amount of shoujo that follows that basic pattern, but nothing's really jumping out to me yet. I don't want to try Rec. I've only seen a little bit of it. Stands for recording a recorder. It's about girls who go into vocal work, voice work. So I don't think there are any, like, anime voice actors in there, but they're doing singing basically. I think one of them is like a voice, like a generic voice actor, not an anime voice actor. Although maybe it's just singing. It might just be singing and idols and such. So that's an interesting one. Other ones about teams of girls, basically. Also similar in a way would be Hanasaku Iroha. If you haven't already seen it, about a teenage girl who goes to work at an inn, traditional Japanese inn, and it deals with various characters there. And it's I wouldn't say mostly female staff, but about half the staff is female, and you follow them for quite a bit of it. So I think I'd aim for that. That kind of makes sense. So it's funny. Last week we talked about older anime fans and being an anime fan as an adult, and the fact that that's kind of difficult at times. That sometimes you don't want to, let your geek flag fly in, say, a conservative work environment, where you might not have, a whole bunch of anime figurines on your desk at work if you're of a certain age. And And I saw at Katsucon this weekend, there's actually a panel about that. It's called, I think, Aren't You a Little Old for That? And it's going to talk about being an older otaku. So I'm kind of curious about that. I do like what we talked about the other week, that there's kind of these three generations, if you will. You have the teenager, where it doesn't really matter if you're an anime fan. You know, you're a fan of that like you're a fan of anything else. You know, you can be, you know, people can arch an eyebrow at it, but they can arch an eyebrow at anything you might be into when you're a teenager. I don't feel like teenagers these days find anime weird. And you have the young adults. One second. You have the young adults where, again, you have a job, you're interacting with people, and so you're gonna let people know that you're an anime fan, but you're not necessarily going to, talk about it incessantly all the time. So you have that kind of that restraint and that idea that, okay, there's a time and a place, and so you wear an anime T-shirt, say, out in public in general, and you might wear one to work if you're in a very casual kind of work environment. But again, you're not going to wear that like all the time everywhere. And then you have the sort of the third generation older fan who is not going to wear an anime T-shirt to work. It's just not going to look good. It's kind of interesting how that's evolved. I do think that the idea of the otaku being bullied is something of an outdated trope. I don't think that teenagers get seriously bullied for being otaku anymore. I don't hear those stories anymore. And I think people talk about it and say, oh, you got to be careful. I don't want to be bullied. It's like, well, do you actually know anyone who's literally been bullied for being an anime fan? And that seems to be a thing that happened a while ago, but not so much these days. So yeah, this is a tough nut to crack. We kind of want to do a panel about this, or my friend wants to do a panel about this, and I'd like to help. But we can't really figure out what you'd tell, what you'd do, what story you'd tell. Don't know. There's no real advice you can give to somebody who is older. You don't want to tell them, well, don't talk about anime at all. But you also don't want to tell them to, bring anime figurines into the next business meeting. Right? There's a balance there. And it's certainly harder in that there are fewer older anime fans. So letting your geek flag fly, well, it's not just that. It's, who do you watch anime with? How do you find fellow otaku? It's a tough one. I sure don't know the answer to that question. But I'm definitely going to think about that more and think about what advice one would give. Yeah, people have their likes and dislikes, and I think those are stronger the older you get. So folks are less likely when you're 40, 45 to check out a completely new medium. And it's not that older folks are completely closed-minded, but that once you got to that age, you got plenty of stuff going on. You have plenty of things you're into, and you don't really need a new a new medium to explore. So it's kind of hard to really push people in that direction. I don't know. Yeah. You kind of want to just tell people, hey, if you're an anime fan and you're older, go for it. I guess that would be one of the things, is if you're older, be ready for other people of your age range to be, assume that fewer people of your age range are going to be into it, right? Because it's just, teens are more experimental, if you will. Right, exactly, Fisher. It's we have all the money in the world to buy it. We have these huge collections, but no one to share them with, so to speak. we can buy it all, not all of it, believe me. But we don't really have a lot of things. There are some anime clubs in the area that are, and one in particular that is primarily like middle-aged people, and they're like old school fans. And they basically, one of the reasons they have this anime club is to get together, every 2 weeks and watch anime together. So they formed that very strong community around that. And I think it's one of the ways you do. I think you're absolutely right, Seth, that the upcoming generation was raised on Toonami, and so it's just kind of, anime is more normal. But then how do you move beyond that? So I think, so yeah, I think it's not going to be weird, if you will, or no, people will know what anime is, and they will understand what it means to be a fan of anime. But that doesn't mean that the people will also just watch anime with you, right? It's a question of the difference between awareness and fandom. So, how do you keep your fandom going when people around you are not fans and unlikely to become fans? I guess that's the problem. It's a more lonely road. Yeah, exactly. That's actually surprising. There's got to be a DBZ reference on SNL at some point. But I totally see what you mean. Yeah, there's when that's just a casual joke you make that doesn't differentiate you as a geek. It's just a reference that everyone gets. That's kind of where the time has come. Yeah, you can teach your kids, but kids are different, right? They're not going to enjoy the same things you do, and you can't watch Perfect Blue with them. That definitely helps. I actually knew a guy who, I think he was into anime first, and then he introduced his kids to anime, and they watched Naruto together, and they have this very strong anime household, which is really cool. So that definitely helps. Definitely helps. Assuming you have kids, obviously. It is interesting, though. I mean, I would have thought that by now, given the trajectory from, say, DBZ and Sailor Moon to Pokemon, where suddenly after Pokemon everyone knew what anime was, at least, that by this time, 2019, it would become just sort of part of the fabric of society. And it has to an extent. You do see anime merch around, you do see anime characters around in even American pop culture here and there. Like, you walk down the mall, you walk past a Spencer's, or past what is the like Claire's, stuff for girls and stuff for boys, and you'll see anime characters, certainly Toys R Us and such, when that still existed. It's become less weird, but it's definitely a subculture. It's definitely its own little fandom. So, who knows? Maybe that's the way it's always going to be. Maybe it's never going to become just one of those things that everyone watches, because very few things are, let's be honest. There are very few genres or mediums that break through into the mainstream forever. I think we seem to be seeing the slowdown of the young adult market now. We're certainly not seeing Harry Potters and Aragons, every couple of months the way we used to. So YA even seems to be, that juggernaut seems to be slowing. Everything changes. So you guys have any other questions, anything you want to talk about? We've been going for about an hour. So this would not be a bad point to transition to other things, but I'm totally open to continuing on with other things. Well, you care about what others think about what you like, because that's how you form friendships. Right? I can happily continue to just consume anime myself, but that's entirely, then I'm just doing it alone. I'd rather do that with other people, and also other people improve one's fandom. They sharpen one's mind. Yeah, and we do have in fairness, there's a lot of anime on TV now, and we'll lump like streaming services and such into that too. So if you want to watch, anime on TV, broadcast, cable, etc., it's out there, which is pretty cool, pretty remarkable. And that seems to be the way to do it. I think anime is one of those things where long-running series are safe for like network television, the Pokemons of the world, whereas basic cable is in some ways not a really great fit for anime anymore, because you have to be right. You have to be genre specific. And so I think there's certainly some potential for more cable channels to take on some anime. I'm kind of surprised History Channel doesn't have an anime block. There's certainly plenty of historical anime, but it's not their wheelhouse. It's not their their viewers are not gonna understand anime, although it'd be awesome. But then you have the Netflixes and the HBOs and such where they can actually show some of the crazier stuff. Genres of anime that used to be more common than Your Shadow Rival. Yeah, I think we've talked about that. I'd love to see more science fiction and more science fantasy. So more of that crazy stuff that we got, especially in the 90s. Space opera. That's my jam. I came to anime through science fiction. So I love that stuff. I actually just copied from VHS onto digital a movie called Cyber Zone. It's a very cheesy sci-fi B movie that I just love because all the actors are completely aware that they're in a B movie. It's not meta, and it's an American live action movie, but it's just no one's trying to get an Oscar performance out of this. No one's trying to outdo themselves with this, but everyone's competent. Everyone's doing exactly what they should be doing in this story. And there you go. And it's just really fun to see a movie where all these things come together. It's telling this story, and it just kind of goes from plot point to plot point, and the writing is fun. I just love that stuff. It's hunting down cyborgs. So just it's a really fun time. So I'd love to see more of that stuff in anime. Simply Twisted anime. I don't watch a lot of Simply Twisted anime. Perfect Blue certainly qualifies. It also depends on how twisted you want to get. I mean, we can go into H territory there. Martial arts. Oh wait, legitimate. Yeah, that's an interesting point because we have the budget now. I think we had a fair amount of martial arts stuff and martial arts themed stuff in the '90s back when budgets were high or higher. So you could do like Ayani's High Kick and Baki the Grappler and all those other anime that were really about martial arts. But then when the budgets, dropped in the 2000s, those all went away because it's, how do you represent martial arts when you don't have a budget? So you go there, and then, we've recovered from that. But you don't really see any martial arts anymore in any sort of detail. I was actually kind of disappointed when Samurai Harem came out. Terrible name, and not the name of the original. They just came up with that, which is basically Rurouni Kenshin as a romantic comedy. And it's a really fun, light, not really a harem. I mean, it's a harem anime in the sense that it's a guy living with cute girls, but only two of them have any real interest in him. And I don't know. There's something about that. And the action animation is it's okay, but it just wasn't really exciting. And it came out, about 10, 12 years ago, so budgets were still recovering. But yeah, it's tough. Yeah, you also certainly got martial arts stuff in the 80s as well, not just 90s. But yeah, we haven't seen a lot of martial arts stuff. That's a good point. So I don't know where that's gone to. And granted, martial arts movies have kind of died out too. The great flood of the Hong Kong, like Shaw Brothers martial arts movies of the 70s and 80s and into the 90s. That's kind of petered out. Obviously, they're still making things like that, but it's not a big deal. Kitty Grade, that is classic 90s anime. There's a great panel at Star City Anime called The Dark Side of Anime that was all about the dark and twisted stuff out there, which was interesting. You know, some of those things I'm like, I'm not watching that. But something like Bokurano, I think, is pretty twisted in its own way. Pupa was certainly twisted. Certainly out there. It's interesting because I think that stuff appeals to a very specific demographic, the twisted anime, and it certainly seems to have enough of a market because there's a fair amount of it out there. But you're not going to get a lot of it, right? It's never going to be a huge thing. I'd kind of like to do a panel about 90s anime that you may have missed, or maybe about the 90s aesthetic in general, about just what the 90s were like as a decade for anime. Because you're right, 90s anime seems to be avoided and forgotten. Or if not forgotten, then the average anime fan these days just, I think, isn't aware of it. Or thinks that the only anime made that decade was Evangelion. Yeah, exactly, Seth. Yeah, there was definitely that period. And I mean, I think Akira was definitely the watershed for that. When they're like, oh, and boobs. And Cream Lemon as well, obviously. So, yeah. All right. In that case, I'm going to end it there for tonight. Because I got CatScon this weekend. I'm going to be there probably just tomorrow for part of the day. It's been an exhausting couple of weeks. So I'm trying not to overwhelm my weekend. But that is the plan there. So, what that does mean is that next week, I plan to restart Anime Club. That's right. I can't do it tomorrow, but we'll do it next week. We'll start doing Anime Club. And we'll probably continue on with Ergo Proxy. Or no, was it Ergo Proxy we were watching? I always get that confused. But I'll announce it. We'll start watching something next week. And that'll be fun. So we'll start doing more of that. And other than that, trying to think. I should be back to a regular schedule starting this upcoming week. Drawing Monday, Drawing Inwards, and then Workshop or World Building Wednesday. All my trips are done. Should be done for the foreseeable future. So we should be back to the regular pattern. Looking forward to that. So thanks all so much for joining me. This has been a great conversation. As always, you guys are amazing conversationalists. I love being able to get in here and we just get into stuff, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, that's it for this week. Thank you all so much. See you next week. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.